If you think marrying a Japanese woman is a fairy tale, about two soulmates magically meeting under a cherry tree in spring, you're about to suffer a merciless reality check. In traditional Japan, and even in the hyper-modern metropolises, marriage will hardly be the union of two hearts in love. Marriage here is, at its rawest core, a true high-stakes corporate merger, involving the reputations of two entire family lineages. And the approval process for that merger to happen is so cold, bureaucratic, pragmatic, and steeped in a historic social paranoia that your future father-in-law has the full cultural and moral right to hire a professional private investigator to turn your life upside down long before you even dream of making the official proposal. We're talking about a real-world institution, legalized and extremely active, called Koshinjo. A Koshinjo is not a wedding planner who's going to pick out the flowers for your party. It's a private detective agency strictly specialized in premarital family espionage. And pay very close attention. The investigator isn't there to find out if you're unfaithful, whether you enjoy the same hobbies as your fiancé, or if you're a funny person. His goal is to conduct a forensic and grim sweep of your entire family tree. The Koshinjo will secretly investigate whether your parents have hidden debts. It will try to access medical records and information from neighbors in search of any history of genetic diseases or psychiatric problems hidden in your bloodline, something that, unfortunately, still carries a brutal stigma in the country. They travel in disguise to your hometown, interview former teachers and neighbors, all to find out if you were a troubled teenager, if your father drank too much, or even if your family, 100 years ago, belonged to the Burakumin, a marginalized and discriminated social caste in the rigid Japanese feudal system, whose veiled prejudice still haunts the most conservative families. If the detective finds a single black mark on your family history, no matter how small or insignificant, the engagement is cancelled on the spot. No explanations, no room for tears, and no negotiation. The bride's family simply disappears to protect their own honor. And believe me, being investigated by a spy in the shadows of Tokyo is the least of your problems. Today, I'm going to reveal in detail what modern, independent Japanese women are really demanding in order to agree to put a ring on their finger. And I guarantee it has absolutely nothing to do with being rich, charming, or foreign. But before we get to the current demands, you need to understand a bizarre, disturbing, and ancient reason that forces the traditional Shinto bride to wear a giant white hood at the altar, specifically designed to hide her feared demon horns. Keep that information in mind. For you to truly understand the absurd and pragmatic level of demand from a contemporary Japanese woman, we need to go back in time. The economy has always dictated the rhythm of the Japanese heart. Let's go back to the height of the 1980s, during the legendary economic bubble era. At that time, money flowed through the streets of the country like water. Unrestrained Asian luxury was the rule, and ostentation was the way to survive socially. In this scenario of extreme financial arrogance, Japanese women established a husband approval standard that became nationally known as the unattainable 3 highs, or sanku in the local language. To have even the slightest chance of inviting a woman to dinner, a man needed to ace all 3 requirements. The first was great height, kokinshu. Short men were summarily dismissed from the lists. Height was seen as a visual symbol of genetic power and good nutrition. The second requirement was high education, kogakureki. Just any degree wasn't enough. The suitor needed to have graduated from the country's hyper-elite universities, such as the University of Tokyo, ensuring an unquestionable intellectual status in front of her friends. The third high, and undoubtedly the most exclusionary of all, was high income, koshunyu. Annual earnings of at least 10 million yen were required, a fortune. This superficiality focused on money and appearance wasn't just greed. Women of that era were strongly pressured by patriarchal society to abandon their promising careers the moment they married, becoming full-time housewives, the Sengyu Shufu. The mental math was simple. If they were sacrificing their own freedom and career to take care of the home, the man had an obligation to be an infallible provider who would fund trips, designer clothes, and luxury. But the house of cards collapsed. In the early 90s, the Japanese economic bubble burst with overwhelming destructive force. Easy money dried up overnight, dozens of megacorporations went bankrupt, and wages stagnated. The country entered what sociology calls the lost decades, a long period of economic freeze. The infallible rich provider man, the owner of the three highs, went rapidly extinct. And faced with a new, merciless reality of limited resources and tight budgets, all of female society had to readapt to survive the collapse. It was exactly out of that economic and psychological crisis that today's rules of the game were born. The female standard changed radically from the three highs to the pragmatic four lows, or yonte. And don't make the mistake of thinking the word low means it got easier to marry them. Quite the opposite. The bar wasn't lowered, it was transformed into a true survival test. I'll detail these four lows for you today. But first, discover how an elementary school math rule can curse grooms and completely destroy a wedding party, turning the event into a true and irreversible social disaster. The Japanese wedding is a minefield of invisible etiquette rules, where one misstep offends many powerful people. In traditional engagement ceremonies, the Ueno, families exchange gifts loaded with folklore, such as surume, which is literally dried, dehydrated squid. Because it's tough and lasts for years without rotting, it symbolizes the wish that the new couple will have the resilience and patience to chew and swallow the hard difficulties of life together. We spent weeks crunching demographic data, reading reports, and deeply studying the anthropology of Japan to produce content free of the lies you're told on social media. If you respect and value this kind of in-depth investigative journalism, hit the subscribe button on the channel right now, while we tie the knot on this envelope and show you how the number 20 can destroy an entire family in Tokyo. The greatest mathematical nightmare of the Japanese wedding goes by the name goshugi. When you attend a wedding as a guest, it is strictly forbidden to buy the newlyweds a blender or a television. The mandatory gift is always cash. Brand new bills, freshly printed and without a single crease, pinsatsu, placed inside a ceremonial envelope, shugibukuro. But the exact amount of yen you put inside the envelope hides a fatal trap. The amount must, obligatorily and without discussion, be an odd number. The accepted standard for regular friends is to gift the newlyweds 30,000 yen, close to $200. Why is this rule so strict? Because in Japanese superstition, even numbers like 20,000 or 40,000 can be perfectly divided in half. Giving an amount that can be split into equal halves psychologically and energetically attracts separation and the division of the couple's assets. It's the unmistakable omen of a traumatic divorce. Giving an even amount at a wedding isn't an innocent mistake. It's literally seen as a passive-aggressive attack and an insult, wishing for the end of that union. And the obsession with math doesn't stop there. If you're on a tight budget and can only give 20,000 yen, etiquette teaches an obscure trick. You should place one 10,000 yen bill and two 5,000 yen bills. The amount is even, but the number of physical bills inside the envelope is 3, an odd number that breaks the mathematical curse of division. The number 4 is banned because its pronunciation, shy, is identical to the word death. And the number 9, ku, sounds like suffering. Making a mistake of that magnitude will guarantee that the family erases your contact from their lives permanently. But money envelopes are mere details compared to the country's immense mental pressure. Japanese society is driven and governed by two diametrically opposed concepts, honna and tatemae. Honna represents what you truly feel, your deepest fears, your secret anguish. And tatemae is your unshakable public facade, the polished mask you're obligated to present for society to judge. And a lavish wedding, televised for dozens of colleagues, is the absolute peak of imposing tatemae. Everything has to appear flawless, so the family avoids the worst tragedy in the Asian worldview, public shame, or second te. driven by absolute panic over society's judgment, one of the most surreal and bizarre markets gained strength: the professional rental of human extras. If a groom is a loner, works a mediocre job, and has no friends or bosses impressive enough to impress the bride's family, the humiliation of social failure can cancel the union. To cover up this panic, huge, registered, and profitable agencies, like the globally known Family Romance, rent out experienced professional actors. For a few $100s a head, the company sends charismatic gentlemen dressed in expensive suits to show up at the party and pretend, with flawless acting, to be the successful directors of your corporation. The actor gets up on stage and cries, telling fake rehearsed stories about how indispensable you are to the company's future, moving the bride's family to genuine tears of pride. It's possible to rent fake childhood friends and even fake parents to fill the seats at the altar. The party, driven by the dread of failure, turns into a true theater performance, and often wives and children only discover, decades later, that the entire group of the husband's past friends were freelance employees who disappeared at the end of the reception. All this oppression of appearances reaches its most poetic, yet darkest moment during the religious ceremony at a Shinto shrine. The traditional bride wears a stunning, hyper-elaborate, and voluminous kimono of an absolute white called shiromuku. Pop culture taught us that white wedding dresses represent celestial purity or angelic virginity, but Japan's ancient historical roots reveal a deeper darkness. Pure, undyed white is historically the color of heavy mourning and funerals. By wearing that cadaverous white garment before society, the bride is symbolically dying and being buried for her biological family. Her past identity is extirpated, and like a pale blank canvas, she is absorbed, belonging body, soul, and servitude to the new husband's lineage. But the grim symbolism extends above the shoulders. Matching the wedding shroud, the bride wears on her head the giant, rigid white hood called tsunokakushi. Literally from archaic Japanese, this word translates as the hiding place of horns. The old patriarchal and folkloric belief held, through the legend of the Oni demons and the Hanya entities, that women carried invisible demon horns inherent in their heads, which only revealed themselves and pierced the skin when they let feminine pride, jealousy over marital betrayals, and rage over men's domination consume them. So, by fastening that huge, suffocating hat to her head, the submissive bride is making a painful public vow for life. Before gods and men, she swears to crush her own voice. She swears to never let her jealousy and demon horns surface. She swears to endure injuries in silence, burying her own individuality and opposing opinions in order to perfectly embody the role of the peaceful, docile wife, submissive to the patriarchal wishes of the husband and the strict mother-in-law, without ever questioning the rules of the house. Old Japan's luxurious veil was not a piece of beauty. It was the supreme physical symbol of silencing, taming, and muzzling the age-old woman, and it is precisely against the suffocating shadow of that funeral hood, and as the most formidable, exact, and vengeful sociological response of recent decades, that Japanese women woke up from their patriarchal coma. Here we arrive at our final revelation, the advent of the cruel and inflexible four lows, the Yonte, in the marriage market of the most methodical nation on planet Earth. Forget money, height, and old-fashioned ostentation. Today's women watched their mothers trapped in isolation, scrubbing dirty floors their whole lives in empty, sad, depressing marriages, just waiting for husbands who didn't even know how to turn on the stove to come home drunk from endless toxic corporate outings with their bosses. They decided, and they insist, with absolute and non-negotiable pragmatism, that they will not be slaves. If a man fails to gain absolute approval on each of these four behavioral pillars, he is instantly judged unfit and left to fend for himself, to grow old and die alone. The first low is the relentless concept of te-aizon, meaning low dependency. For millennia, overprotective and submissive mothers raised spoiled sons who left their cozy homes in the countryside, worked exhausting 15-hour jobs under brutal corporate pressure in the capitalist market, but who, paradoxically, at home, behaved like helpless babies. Adult men and brilliant executives at multinational corporations who, tragically, didn't even know the basics of how to press the right button to start a simple, old automatic washing machine. Much less did they cook, clean the bathroom, or manage adult responsibilities without depending on the new, passive wife. The era of silent, unpaid servitude is over. The 21st century Japanese woman coldly and urgently demands an extremely independent and functional adult man. She urgently needs a balanced, clean, and logical partner who shares all the mental planning of finances and the flawless execution of tiring daily tasks, because she too is exhausted from the corporate grind, and she flatly refuses to take on a whiny partner who's looking for marriage to be a second, cheap, silent, protective mother. The second terrible, lethal demand of the marriage market is called tei risuku, or low risk. In the unstable post-bubble economic abyss, where the glorious traditional lifetime employment promised in old documentaries is now nothing but a ghost, they've developed a tremendous and incurable rational aversion to bold entrepreneurs who irresponsibly gamble with capital, and they feel disgust toward crazy startup dreamers and reckless high-risk investors. There's no room for romance when the reality of hunger threatens their honor. They value monotonous routine above anything attractive, and today they marry exclusively, primarily and obsessively, the boring, modest, mild-mannered, and irrevocably secure local government bureaucrats. The dull stability that guarantees a steady paycheck, with zero chance of destructive bankruptcy and no chronic fear of a corporate layoff, is the new and supreme definition of sexy in the eyes of matrimonial evaluators. The third law, the one that overwhelmingly strikes at old, toxic, conservative Japanese pride, is the indispensable, lethal, and non-negotiable concept of tei shisei, or low posture. It is the fatal and irreversible end of the unquestionable patriarch who violently used his brute, ignorant masculinity to slam his fists on tables, raise his voice in command, and demand that his fragile companion simply bow her head to the floor, obediently swallowing painful abuse. The relentless rule requires that the contemporary urban man be, above all, genuinely and intrinsically humble at heart, extremely understanding, mature, and incredibly gifted with pure, peaceful emotional empathy. It demands, without negotiation, that he silence the impulsive voice of masculine pride, swallow his old stupid machismo and inflamed toxic ego, know how to actively listen, accept being advised, and attentively hear all of his partner's deep pains, without, under any dangerous circumstance, ever aggressively losing control and raising his voice to hurt, threaten, or control her. The bizarre, monstrous demon horns of the superstitious, oppressed wives that were once hidden at the altar no longer need to be silenced. The one who now needs to bend his toxic mindset, evolve quickly, and erase the legacy of useless macho pride is, solely and definitively, the Japanese man. And the fourth, merciless, lethal, and crushing final demand is the math of tei nenpi, the relentless low-cost financial standard. In modern, inflated, extremely expensive, suffocating, and brutally hard-to-survive global megacities like the dense center of Tokyo or Osaka, the weight of bills falls hard. Money bleeds away. There's absolutely no room for irresponsible, useless, vain, empty, and expensive spending fueled by an inflated ego. The idealized, perfect, and attractive husband who passes the relentless, cold, and severe scrutiny of Tokyo's women today needs to irreversibly and obligatorily be incredibly practical, sensible, pragmatic, methodical, and extremely frugal. He cannot burn or waste a single precious yen on expensive, disgusting drinks and futile, noisy parties with empty corporate bosses, or gamble on the noisy pachinko slot machines on street corners. All of his precious sweat, every hard-earned cent, and his focus must be channeled solely, single-mindedly, and exclusively toward shielding the nest, protecting the family's health, maintaining the inviolable security of the home, and focusing on the heavy, costly education of the future and of the children. The age-old macho disgust has been broken, and wise, formidable women have imposed their unbreakable laws of survival. The unquestionable truth is that the contemporary Japanese woman has developed the most brilliant self-preservation rules of the modern era. They used Spartan logic not out of computer-like coldness, but out of an absolute survival instinct of flesh and blood. Japanese love has become the ultimate endurance test in a country that drowns and annihilates the individual before the collective, and that punishes failure with definitive, cruel, and absolute social isolation. Hope this dive into the cultural complexities of Japan was enlightening for you. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow our next analyses, and leave a comment below suggesting which culture or country you'd like us to explore in the next video. Until next time.